I was 24, drowning in student debt, and working doubles at Millie's Diner in a small Ohio town that smelled like asphalt and fried onions. The kind of place where the jukebox only played Johnny Cash and the coffee was strong enough to wake a coma patient. My life was a blur of sore feet, sticky countertops, and tips that barely covered my rent. I wasn't unhappy exactly, just stuck, like a fly in honey, dreaming of something bigger but too tired to chase it. It was a Tuesday morning, slow as molasses, the kind of day where the clock ticks louder than the customers talk. I was wiping down the counter for the 100th time, my apron stained with ketchup and regret, when he walked in. The bell above the door jingled, and I looked up, expecting another trucker or one of the regulars who'd nurse a coffee for 3 hours while reading the same newspaper. But this guy, he didn't fit. He was tall, maybe 6'2", with dark hair that fell just shy of messy, wearing a navy blazer that looked expensive but not flashy. His shoes were polished, but scuffed at the toes, like he'd walked 1,000 miles in them. He had this quiet intensity, like he was carrying a secret he wasn't ready to share. His eyes, deep green, like a forest after rain, caught mine for a second, and I swear my heart did a little hiccup. "Morning," I said, tossing my rag under the counter and grabbing a menu. "Just you today?" He nodded, sliding into a booth by the window. "Yeah, just passing through." His voice was low, warm, like a campfire on a cold night. I handed him the menu, my fingers brushing his for a split second. I don't know why I noticed that, but I did. My cheeks got hot, and I busied myself with the coffee pot to hide it. "Coffee?" I asked, already pouring before he answered. "Please," he said, his eyes scanning the menu but not really reading it. "Black, no sugar." I set the mug down, the steam curling up like a lazy ghost. "You got a name, stranger? Or should I just call you Coffee Guy?" He chuckled, a sound that felt like it hadn't been used in a while. "Evan," he said, glancing up. "And you're..." He nodded at my name tag, which was crooked and probably had a smudge of syrup on it. "Cassie," I said, tucking a strand of my messy blonde ponytail behind my ear. "Welcome to Millie's. Best pancakes in town. But don't tell anyone I said that. Trade secret." He smiled, and it was the kind of smile that made you want to keep talking, just to see it again. "Noted. I'll take the pancakes then." I scribbled his order and headed to the kitchen, my sneakers squeaking on the linoleum. For some reason, my heart was pounding like I'd just run a mile. "Get it together, Cassie," I told myself. "He's just a guy, probably married, probably boring, probably leaving in 10 minutes. But he didn't leave. He ate his pancakes slowly, reading a book. A real book, not a phone, which was rare around here. It was some worn paperback with a cracked spine, the kind you find in a used bookstore. Every now and then, he'd glance out the window, like he was waiting for something, or maybe running from it. I refilled his coffee twice, each time finding an excuse to linger. "Good book?" I asked once, leaning against the booth. He looked up, surprised, like he'd forgotten where he was. "Yeah, it's about a guy who loses everything and tries to start over. Kinda heavy for breakfast." "Sounds like my kind of story," I said, half joking. Minus the starting over part. I'm still stuck on the losing everything. He tilted his head, studying me. "You don't seem like someone who's lost." I laughed, but it came out sharp. "Oh, you'd be surprised. Student loans, a car that breaks down every other week, and a landlord who thinks heat is optional. I'm basically a country song waiting to happen." He didn't laugh, just looked at me with those green eyes, like he was seeing something I didn't. Sounds like you're tougher than you think. I didn't know what to say to that, so I just shrugged and walked away, my face burning again. Who was this guy? And why was he making me feel like a high school kid with a crush? He came back the next day. And the day after that. Always the same booth, always black coffee and pancakes, always that book. We'd talk a little more each time. Small stuff, like the weather or the fact that I secretly hated the diner's meatloaf special. He didn't say much about himself, just that he was taking a break from work and driving across the country. I figured he was some kind of writer or artist, maybe having a midlife crisis. He looked about 30, but there was something older in his eyes, like he'd lived a few lifetimes already. By the fourth day, I was looking forward to his visits more than I wanted to admit. I started wearing my good jeans to work, the ones that didn't have a hole in the knee. I even put on mascara, which was a big deal for someone who usually rolled out of bed and threw on whatever smelled clean. That day, he was quieter than usual, staring out the window like it held the answers to the universe. I poured his coffee and tried to lighten the mood. You know, if you keep coming back, I'm going to have to charge you rent for that booth. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Might be worth it. This place feels safe. I raised an eyebrow. Safe? Millie's? The place where the ceiling leaks and the cook yells at the radio? He laughed, and this time it was real. Yeah, it's honest. No pretense. You don't get that everywhere. I didn't know what he meant, but I felt it, like he was talking about more than just the diner. I wanted to ask, but something in his expression stopped me. Instead, I said, "Well, stick around long enough and I'll teach you how to make the world's worst meatloaf." "Deal," he said, and for a second, it felt like we were the only two people in the world. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about him, Evan, with his quiet voice and his secrets. I wondered where he was staying, what he was running from, why he kept coming back. I told myself it was nothing, just a silly crush, but deep down, I knew it was more. There was something about him, something that made me feel alive in a way I hadn't in years. The next morning, he didn't show up. I waited, checking the clock every 5 minutes, my stomach twisting. By noon, I was a mess, snapping at the cook and spilling coffee on my apron. He's gone, I thought. Just another guy passing through. Why did I even care? But then, just before my shift ended, the bell jingled, and there he was. He looked different, tired, maybe, or nervous. He slid into his booth, but he didn't open his book. Instead, he looked right at me and said, "Cassie, can we talk?" My heart stopped. Sure. Let me grab you some coffee." "No coffee," he said, his voice soft but firm. "Just sit. Please." I glanced around. The diner was empty except for old Mr. Jenkins, who was half asleep over his soup. I slid into the booth across from Evan, my hands shaking. "Okay, what's up?" He took a deep breath, like he was about to jump off a cliff. "I haven't been completely honest with you about who I am." I frowned. "What, are you, like, a fugitive or something?" He laughed, but it was shaky. "Number nothing like that." "My name's Evan. That's true. But I'm Evan Caldwell." I stared at him, waiting for the punchline. "Okay, am I supposed to know that name?" He rubbed the back of his neck, looking almost embarrassed. "Probably not. But if you Googled me, you'd find out I'm, well, kind of rich. Like, really rich." I blinked. "Rich? Like you own a nice car rich, or like I own a company worth a few $1 billion rich?" He said, his voice barely above a whisper. I laughed. Because what else was I supposed to do? Yeah, right. And I'm secretly a princess. Come on, Evan. What's this really about? But he didn't laugh. He pulled out his phone, typed something, and slid it across the table. It was a Forbes article with a picture of him. Same green eyes, same quiet smile. The headline read, Evan Caldwell, tech prodigy, sells startup for $2.3 billion. I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. You're serious? He nodded. I didn't want to tell you. I didn't want you to look at me differently. I came here, this town, because I needed to get away. From the meetings, the investors, the noise. I just wanted to be normal. And then I met you. My head was spinning. Me? I'm nobody. I'm a waitress who can't even afford a new pair of shoes. You're not nobody, he said, his voice fierce. You're the first person in years who's treated me like a person, not a paycheck. You're funny. You're kind. You're real. I didn't expect to feel this way, but I do. I couldn't breathe. Feel what? He reached across the table, his hand hovering near mine, like he was afraid to touch me. I'm falling for you, Cassie. And I know it's crazy. And I know you probably think I'm insane. But I had to tell you. I stared at him, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. A million thoughts raced through my head. He was a millionaire. He was leaving. This was a dream. I was going to wake up. But all I could focus on was the way he was looking at me, like I was the only thing that mattered. I don't know what to say, I stammered. This is a lot. I know, he said, his voice soft. I don't expect you to feel the same. I had to be honest. I'm leaving tomorrow and I couldn't go without telling you. Leaving? The word hit me like a punch. Where? Back to New York, he said. I've been gone too long, but I want to see you again, if you want that. I didn't know what I wanted. My life was a mess, and he was a billionaire. And this was all too much. But when I looked into his eyes, I saw the same guy who'd laughed at my meatloaf joke, who'd read his book in my booth, who'd made me feel like I was more than just a waitress. Okay, I said, my voice barely a whisper.